News when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Nathan Hager.
And I'm Karen Moskow.
Karen, we begin with a highly anticipated summit coming up at the end of the week. President Trump is preparing to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says the meeting could be a turning point.
He clearly is putting pressure on Putin. Next Friday will be important because it will be about testing Putin, how serious he is on bringing this terrible war to an end.
Speaking on ABC's This Week, NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte said the summit could open the door to negotiations about Ukrainian territory, along with security guarantees. Ukrainian ambassador to the U.S., Oksana Markarova, says her president, Volodymyr Zelensky, is willing to talk.
We all understand the reality on the ground. And we are ready to discuss, how to end this war, and that's why ceasefire, as a step, has always been so important.
At the same time, Ukrainian Ambassador Oksana Markarova tells CBS's Face the Nation the Ukrainian constitution does not allow it to give up territory. Face the Nation and ABC's This Week can be heard every Sunday on Bloomberg Radio.
Well, Nathan, Bloomberg News has learned European nations want to talk to President Trump ahead of his meeting with Putin, and we get more on this developing story with Bloomberg's Ewan Potts in London. Ewan, good morning.
Karen and Nathan, it's been a weekend of intense diplomacy between US, Ukrainian and European officials, including meetings between Vice President J.D. Vance and the British Foreign Secretary. Now Bloomberg understands that European leaders are keen to speak to the US president before Friday's summit with Vladimir Putin. Along with Ukraine, they'd like to see a ceasefire with the freezing of the current front line as a first step, along with more economic pressure on Moscow. Whether President Trump intends to pick up the phone still remains to be seen. In London, I'm Ewan Potts, Bloomberg Radio.
Okay, Ewan, thank you. The trade truce between the U.S. and China is set to expire tomorrow. President Trump has not said yet whether he'll extend it. But before that decision, NVIDIA and Advanced Micro Devices have agreed to pay 15% of their revenues from AI chip sales in China to the U.S. government in a deal to secure export licenses to the country. We get more from Bloomberg's Min Lo in Hong Kong.
This is something that is quite unprecedented. No U.S. companies had done such a thing before, but it does sort of reflect the pattern that we have seen so far in the Trump administration, with the president asking for certain things from companies such as domestic investments in exchange for things like lowering or exempting some of these companies from U.S. tariffs.
Bloomberg's Min Lo says Beijing is unlikely to warm to the idea of a chip tax, and checking shares of NVIDIA in the pre-market, they are down 1%. AMD is down 2%.
Meanwhile, Nathan, President Trump says he hopes China massively steps up its purchases of American soybeans. On a post on social media, the president said, quote, "I hope China will quickly quadruple its soybean orders." We get more from Bloomberg Global Trade Editor Brendan Murray.
The interesting thing here is that U.S. farmers are looking out at their fields at the moment. They're not quite ready to be harvested, but they're looking at the price of soybeans going, wow, those have really been flat for the past 12 to 18 months. And so perhaps Trump is trying to accomplish two things here, and that's extend an olive branch to China to say, hey, we've got soybeans coming for you, a surplus of them at a low price, and at the same time try to stoke the price of soybeans for key constituents of his throughout the Midwest of the country.
And Bloomberg's Brandon Murray says President Trump also thanked Chinese leader Xi Jinping in the post without saying why. Soybean futures in Chicago rose back above $10 a bushel for the first time in a week after the post.
And Karen, the price of lithium is spiking this morning after battery giant Contemporary Amperex Technology, CATL, halted operations at a major Chinese mine. That's spurring speculation Beijing might move to suspend other projects as it tackles overcapacity across the Chinese economy.
And that's news when you want it with Bloomberg News Now. I'm Karen Moskow.
I'm Nathan Hager, and this is Bloomberg.